whether WWE is in the consideration for if Hook is to leave, where he's going to end up, I think that it really should be, because NXT right now is doing exactly what it says on the tin, developing stars of tomorrow. And Hook may not need that long in NXT with the background he's got, with his past training, who his father is and stuff like that. It could be just a quick stint and then up to main roster potentially. Even if it's not, I think NXT would be a lot more productive for him than being on AEW with the FTW championship, which, let's be honest, doesn't really mean anything. And, you know, doing this fake mentorship stuff with Jericho. His dad is Taz. Like, let's not. We don't need this. A news report from Fightful came out earlier this week that Hook is looking to explore free agency when his AEW contract expires in 2024. Now, this has been something that's been said for maybe the past year now, that obviously Hook's contract was coming up. People were saying that Hook should go straight to NXT. How would Hook fare in NXT? Which I guess is the, you know, next best stomping ground if you're leaving AEW sort of thing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Hook. Is Hook in the right place for his development? And me personally, I'm pretty much in the camp that Hook should leave AEW for WWE. Now, we saw Hook very early on in AEW not speaking. His character was very cool when he first came out. You know, eventually he was hanging around with Team Taz. That's his dad's faction. Taz, Hall of Famer, will be, you know, Taz is absolutely brilliant, and he wasn't really given much to do. The cool factor, the aura was all around Hook at the time, and he eventually became FTW champion. The faction disbanded. He's been out on his own since then. He had a bit of an undefeated streak as well. Recently had a world title match earlier this year against Samoa Joe, which was really, really fun. But is Hook growing as a competitor? Is he getting better? Is his promos getting better? Is his character being developed and all of that kind of stuff? And you could argue, yes, maybe slowly, but for someone that's maybe been on TV for the best part of, let's call it about 3 years maybe at least now, has he made a lot of distance in his growth as a professional wrestler? Probably not. And I'm not sure, and this isn't a slant on the company, it's AEW's focus right now to, you know, really produce that next generation. I think a lot of the people right now in AEW are there because they were great servants on the indies and have worked for the bigger companies, and now are coming for a bit of a more shine, more money, things of that nature, and they're going to build their company around those particular names. Remember, AEW themselves are 5 years old, so it's like, do you get things right now with your top guys to sustain and maintain your company, or do you want to start kind of developing your youngsters from now? I'm sure developing the youngsters isn't on the top of their list of priorities right now. So this is one of the reasons I think that Hook should go elsewhere. Now, I think the term exploring free agency is an interesting one. There are places that Hook can go other than WWE. Of course, you've got TNA that are clearly investing right now in a lot of talent. I would say a lot of young talent as well. So that could be good for Hook to go over to TNA. And of course, Taz has previous ties with TNA as well. Hook in a New Japan, I think, could really be a good option as well. Now, obviously, that is a partner with AEW. So how they would choose to manage his contract between the two companies could be very, very interesting. But I think Hook stylistically could work in New Japan and could be a very kind of left field but interesting option. I'd actually argue that could be a better option for him than going to TNA. But for me, and the conversation will be, if he is leaving AEW, does he go to WWE? Does he go to WWE NXT? And I would say yes, solely on the fact that ever since they have redeveloped NXT, re-emerged it in the light of what NXT really should be, developmental, and turning, you know, these young stars into tomorrow's superstars, I think they have done a cracking job. I think NXT right now is just, it's a factory, just absolutely producing and spitting out these talents that are ready, and a really strong transition is being made from NXT to the main roster at this point. You know, we're seeing the likes of Bron Breakker, a Carmelo Hayes, Obafemi. Some of these names are just really, really shining right now. And even on the women's side of things, there's an abundance of names, a Roxanne Perez, a Tiffany Stratton, pattern. Lyra Valkyria, who's recently just lost her women's title, but she's done some really good stuff as well. Like, I just think that NXT are just nailing it right now with giving all of these people TV time. Even how they managed to do that in just the 2 hours they have every week is crazy to me. Giving all of these people TV time, giving them a good showcase. You could see literally week on week these men and women are improving, and as well as NXT being a good option just from the developmental aspect, you know, we've got the TV aspect that is still there. It's still being shot as a TV show. They are going to, I guess, what is a proper TV channel in CW later on this year. So again, I would think just from a perspective of they need guys that have been on TV, have that TV experience, and that can work as, you know, at least a little bit of a draw. I'm not saying that Hook is going to be pulling in, you know, hundreds and thousands of people every week, but Hook is someone that people will want to go over there and check out. Like, oh yeah, I remember Hook from AEW and stuff like that. Let's see how he's getting on. So I think just, you know, less so for the TV reasons, more so for the developmental ability and opportunity, I would think that WWE is the best option. And if he wants something where I think he can go and be propped up a bit more in terms of, if you like, somewhere between an NXT and a WWE main roster, I think New Japan is your place. I think stylistically, he could go to New Japan and be really, really good off the bat. I'm still not sure what that would do for his character, and that's why for me WWE is the best place that can mesh the character work along with the in-ring ability. But it's very, very interesting for me that this is even a thing, because obviously we know who his dad is, Taz, and you know, as long as this isn't just some fake story that the dirt sheets are running with, it's very interesting that, you know, you would think that Taz has some type of counsel within decisions that Hook will make for his wrestling career. Taz was a fantastic wrestler in his time. It's interesting that they think that this could be the better option, leaving AEW. And I do think for a lot of young talents, leaving AEW really should be an option, unless there is young and there's young, right? Like MJF is young, but I think he's really good in AEW and he works for AEW. He's not developing still. Maybe that's the word we should be using here. People that still need to develop. I watched Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. I was lucky enough to be in attendance. I saw Carl Fletcher versus Lee Johnson. Lee Johnson is terrific. Lee Johnson is great. But is AEW Ring of Honor the place for him to be learning and honing his craft? I'm not so sure. Ring of Honor, I know he's been on a bit of a tear before his loss on that pay-per-view. He had won quite a few matches back to back, but is it just matches? Is he developing as a wrestler? Do you see what I mean? So even the likes of a Lee Johnson, I would say when your contract ends, because I mean, Hook's on TV at least. Ring of Honor isn't quite TV. So maybe Lee Johnson should be looking to move on to something like that and let that place really mold him and make him realize his potential. You can see what it's doing for others. You could definitely see what it's doing for others. And this is why I can't help but think whether WWE is in the consideration for if Hook is to leave, where he's going to end up. I think that it really should be, because NXT right now is doing exactly what it says on the tin. Developing stars of tomorrow, and Hook may not need that long in NXT with the background he's got, with his past training, who his father is and stuff like that. It could be just a quick stint and then up to main roster potentially. Even if it's not, I think NXT would be a lot more productive for him than being on AEW with the FTW championship, which, let's be honest, doesn't really mean anything, and, you know, doing this fake mentorship stuff with Jericho. His dad is Taz. Like, let's not. We don't need this. So for me, Hook should leave AEW just because he's a young star. He needs more matches. He needs more exposure. He needs to learn stylistically, explore his character a bit more. The question is, where would he leave for? Would it be a New Japan? Would it be a TNA? Or would it be a WWE?